Hello and welcome to this very special video where I will be explaining and demonstrating how AI chats work inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. So AI chats are the agents featured inside Tana, and the Tana Voice Note Agent is my revolutionary AI system that transforms your spoken thoughts and ideas into organized knowledge that you can explore together with AI inside Tana. So this is the page for the Tana Voice Note Agent. Transform your voice into structured insights. So you can take a look. The link will be here in the description. And there are two very important concepts here inside this system, which are the AI commands and the AI agents. So this video is all about these 20 specialized AI agents that can help you explore your ideas with AI as your thinking partner. Now, you might be wondering, who am I? So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Felipe Fraga. You can call me Fees. That's what I usually go by. I am from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I have a master's in computer science, and I work with AI-powered knowledge management inside Tana. I have worked with Tiago Forte to bring his book, Building a Second Brain, to Brazil, which is Criando Segundo Cérebro. And I have also been a guest teacher inside Brazil's largest AI community, which is by Alan Nicholas. So I have a module teaching prompt engineering and artificial intelligence inside this community, which means I have studied artificial intelligence and knowledge management very deeply. And this Tana Voice Note Agent is the method, it's the means that I found to bring artificial intelligence and knowledge management to life with something that is super relevant and super important to me, which are voice notes. So with this quick intro out of the way, now let's get back to this Tana page, which is the lesson material for AI chats inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. So this is a lesson from the course, but I've spent so much time building this lesson material and recording different parts of this video that I decided to make this public because I really believe there is super valuable knowledge inside this lesson that I really want to share with everyone, regardless of if you have bought the Tana Voice Note Agent or not. And this is a quick overview of everything we will cover in today's video. So I'm going to be introducing the AI chats and then explaining how the AI chats work inside Tana. So as we said, this is the Tana agents functionality. Then I'll mention the 4 different categories of AI chats. And here, number 4, this is where the gold is at. The best practices to interact with AI chats. This is super valuable, regardless of if you're using the Tana Voice Note Agent, and even regardless of if you're using Tana at all, because here you will find very valuable tips that you can use for interacting with any AI model using any tool. So make sure that you watch this section number 4 on best practices. And then we will wrap up the video by teaching you how to reutilize AI generated content into your work and going through some advanced strategies for using the agents inside this template, and then wrap everything up with some final examples and demonstrations. So that said, let's get straight into this. I want to start by introducing the feature of AI chats inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. Now, this phrase represents the purpose really well. And it's super simple, as a purpose should be. And it is to analyze your ideas by using AI to generate insights from your voice notes. Now, this is deep because we can capture our thoughts and ideas with voice notes in a much more elaborate way than we could capture just by typing. What this means is we can then use this as information and pass it over to AI and then have AI act as this thinking partner for us that can analyze our ideas and generate insights that we would not be able to do by ourselves. So here are a couple of these functionalities and the main concepts behind this process. So it's to leverage AI to process complex information which comes from your voice notes, from your voice recordings. And from here, we can use these AI chats as thinking partners to expand on your ideas by generating in-depth analysis based on your voice recordings and your specific ideas. And from here, you can engage in an ongoing dialogue to help you develop and refine your thinking so that you are looking at ideas from multiple perspectives. So you are receiving those perspectives from AI based on your ideas and oftentimes with perspectives that you might not have considered before. Now, a couple of the major benefits from using AI as your thinking partner are the following. So the first one that I want to touch upon is this idea of reducing cognitive loads with these AI chats, because the cognitive load is this mental effort required to process and organize information. But we have a limited cognitive load. So we have a limited capacity to organize and analyze this information. This is where AI comes in, because we can rent AI's processing power instead of exhausting our own mental resources, because AI is infinite in this sense. So it can analyze large amounts of data, do the heavy lifting for us, and in a way outsource this complexity such that we can focus on interacting and thinking on insights that AI provides us. So these are going to be already structured and they are going to be less complex as they will have already been through this first trial of organizing such that we have more clarity and more organized knowledge ready for us. Number two here is also quite important because the technical prompt engineering inside the Tana Voice Note Agent is already done for you. The template handles this complex prompt engineering because I have already created all of these prompts and configured several agents for you with pre-configured prompts that you can use out of the box. So there's no technical expertise required. You don't need to learn the intricacies of prompt engineering to get a high quality AI response. Now let's go for number two, how AI chats work in Tana. I want to bring some definitions and also some examples so that we really understand what are AI chats and how they can help us. So first of all, is that there is a key difference inside the Tana Voice Note Agent between AI chats and smart objects. This is a very important distinction, and as we will see here, the smart objects are AI commands, which means they generate an output with a predetermined structure based on the content of your voice note, but it's super important to understand it generates a one-time result based on this specific prompt and this structure, which means it's ideal for quick transformations such as extracting a task list or getting a quick list of ideas, things that are simple and straight to the point. Whereas AI chats or agents, these are more flexible because they allow for ongoing conversations. They are an AI chat, as you're all very familiar with. This means you can adapt the output through your conversation for any specific need or any specific question that you might have. So you can refine, expand, and explore different ideas iteratively, again and again. which allows for deeper exploration using follow-up questions or specific directions that you want AI to expand upon. This means we have this interactive partnership between you and artificial intelligence. Now, let's talk about what are AI chats like in practice. So an AI chat is starting a chat inside Tana with a specialized AI agent. So in the Tana Voice Note Agent, there are 20 different agents that are already built for you. Each of them has different instructions to help you explore your ideas through different angles. And you can apply these agents and use them on voice notes that you record, on YouTube videos that you bring from the internet, and on collections of voice notes so that you can identify patterns across different documents or ideas. Now, these agents range from basic conversation partners to more specialized analysis that focus on specific perspectives or specific ways of thinking. So you're probably trying to understand what are AI agents. So let's get straight to the chase with a couple of practical examples here. So I want to use this first agent called Identify Main Themes, and I will use this voice note that I recorded thinking about the benefits of voice notes with AI commands. Now, I'm going to choose this agent called Identify Main Themes to help us get an initial understanding of what are the ideas inside this voice note. So I'm going to use this command called AI chat, and here you will see there are different categories of AI agents that we can call, and I'm going to go for this one called Identify Main Themes, which belongs to the Understand category. So this is an AI chat inside Tana, which is based upon identifying the main themes for this voice note. Here, Tana will generate an analysis with all of these main themes. I'm not going to analyze these answers in detail. I just want to show you how this dynamic works. As you will see, AI is going to generate a list of advantages here. It's going to give advantages of voice notes, integration of AI with voice notes, voice as a creative and intentional tool, accessibility and inclusivity, and even generate further explorations, further suggestions. And here you can ask a follow-up. So you can ask AI to expand on any of these ideas or ask a new question and keep going with this conversation. So I've separated a question that I would like to ask AI, and I'm going to drop this here in the chat and ask AI what are benefits that were not covered in the original voice note, because I want to expand upon these ideas and get AI's perspective. And as you will see, AI is going to give us these different benefits that were not covered in the original voice note. AI has identified a couple of new benefits, such as improved memory and retention, enhanced emotional expression and authenticity. I really enjoyed this one. And a couple of other ones, such as reduction of screen time, which is also amazing. And of course, it will keep on going and keep on expanding on these different possibilities. And this is looking really good. But as I said, I won't focus too much on the content here. I just want to show you how AI chats work. So let's close up this identifying main themes. Let's take another quick look at an example to make things even more tangible. So I've picked another voice note here, which is an analysis of AI chats inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. And this time I want to ask for a basic chat. Now, let's again close this voice note to get more space. And here, the basic chat works in a slightly different way because we are responsible for providing the question and asking for an analysis. So in this case, I have also separated an initial question here that I'm going to copy and ask this AI agent. what are the key concepts that I should focus on when teaching about AI chats. Now, as you'll see, AI, again, is going to give us an answer, a list of these key concepts that I should focus on. And this is, again, going to be an interactive AI chat such that I can keep on asking questions and refining whatever it is that I want to explore based on the content of this voice note. I want to touch on a quick detail here of how this works. So here you will see there is a transcript field. So inside the transcript field, I have the recording of my original voice note, and you might notice this is in Portuguese because I prefer speaking and thinking in my native language. So from this transcript, AI is going to extract all of these key concepts and ideas that I should focus on when teaching about these AI chats. From here, I could ask, for example, can you suggest a framework for teaching these ideas in a logical order based on the information that AI has generated from this initial conversation and the transcript that we saw here on the left? AI is going to generate a framework ordering the key concepts in this lesson and generating an outline for a lesson material that I could use. AI is going to propose an introduction, an overview, and starting with defining the intention and so forth. I'm not going to dive too deep into this. We have some practical examples coming later on. Now, this is how AI chats work in Tana. And I want to briefly talk about the AI chat components so that we understand. Let's take a little peek under the hood to understand how these agents actually work. So there are two main concepts here when dealing with an agent, and that is the trigger command and the Tana agent itself. And here are a couple of examples so that we make this tangible from the start. So these example commands, these are the trigger commands that are going to start an AI agent. And if I expand this command, you will see that here I have three main configurations, which is the agent itself. You have the initial prompt, which is the starting request for an analysis. And finally, the target node, which is where this output is going to be saved. And this basic chat agent over here, this is the Tana agent. Here we have the agent configuration. So for the agent configuration, we have a couple of other parameters, such as the system prompt, which is the underlying instructions and that are going to direct the behavior of this AI agent. We have the chat greeting, which is, of course, a simple message that we are going to receive during this AI chat. We also have an initial prompt, which would be like a default prompt that is overwritten by any initial prompt that you configure in the start AI chat command. And we can also add specific commands for this agent and configure the AI model here. Now, this is super important, and you can switch between these different models when interacting with an AI chat. So as you see, this basic chat is configured with GPT 4.5, but I could come over here and choose from several different options that Tana has a connection with. And these two commands are helpful alternatives for you to change the models quickly. So I can swap the AI model to Gemini, for example. I can walk it back to Claude. And if I expand this, you will see that the model here is going to change accordingly. So here, if I click on GPT, it's going to change to GPT 4.5. So this is a quick shortcut to help you configure commands. And here it's a quick list of some general characteristics of each of these three models. But you can, of course, explore and understand them even deeper by actually using these models in your day-to-day life. And it's also worth noting that these agents can be configured and modified for your specific needs. So if you access the agent configuration, you can modify the system prompt. You can add in extra information about yourself or about your situation and make this agent your own by adapting it to your specific needs and desires. Now, this wraps up section 2, and now I want to give a quick overview of the different categories of AI chats that we have inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. So these are the 4 categories, which are to understand, to take action, to explore and connect, and to dive into a higher understanding. Now, these are pretty intuitive. You can take a quick look at what each of these categories represent, but even better is to look at the different commands within each of these categories. So as you will see, the understand category has 5 different chats that help you get an initial understanding of a voice note or a YouTube video that you are interested in. So he have the basic chat, a deep chat, the insights crystallizer, the identify main themes agent, which we've already seen in action, and the cognitive bias analyzer. Now, in the take action category, we have the action strategic planner, the growth and knowledge navigator. So these are directed at generating action from your ideas and insights. And now we have the explore and connect category. So this is the largest category with several different commands that can help you explore and connect the different ideas inside your voice note using AI to give you several different perspectives and different ways of thinking. So the agents that we have here are the cross connections, the synthesis of knowledge, the knowledge gap explorer, the suggest mental model agent, generate metaphors, which I really enjoy, and we hopefully see an example of this later on, the stakeholder perspective, scale shift analysis, the multi-perspective creator, and the time evolution analyzer. And finally, we have the higher understanding category, which brings in 3 agents, which are the dimensions of consciousness, the hermetic principle analysis, and the zodiac archetypes analysis. So these are all the different agents that come inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. And I know this is a big list, and this is why I want to talk about the 80-20 principle for these AI chats and agents. Because this first command, the basic chat, is our 80-20. Because this simple command is enough to get you most of what you need. Because you can ask about anything that you want, which means you can guide it with specific questions, and this allows you to replicate much of what other agents do. So it's a good idea to start playing with the basic chat, and if you have any doubts of whichever agent is most appropriate for a task, you can default to the basic chat and use it to ask and then follow up with different questions that you might have. So this is a great starting point that you can explore before getting more familiarized with these other 19 specialized agents. Now it's time to dive into the best practices to interact with AI chats. So this is a super important section in this video, and I will be going through 6 different best practices which are super important. So let's get straight into this. The first thing I want to talk about is setting a clear intention. A clear intention is critical to analyze your voice notes and obtain real value from them. And even more, a clear intention also helps you to record the voice note in the first place. Because if you know what you want, everything falls into place from there. So your intention is like this guiding star that's going to shape what you are looking for inside the AI chat interactions. Now let's take a step back and think a little bit. What is an intention in the first place? So here, an intention is the reason why you are recording a voice note. So why are you getting your phone and speaking into that Tana Capture app? Why? What is it that you're looking to find? And another way to put this is, what is your objective while processing this voice note? Is it to get a quick list of tasks, simple request? Is it just a playful exploration of ideas? Or maybe you want to create lesson material based on your thoughts and ideas, or write an article, or record a YouTube video, or maybe you want to dive into your feelings in a specific moment and then reconnect with those feelings whenever you're analyzing that voice note later on. So, what is your objective? And in a way, it is, what do you want to learn, extract, understand, explore in this interaction? So now let's talk about the benefits that you get from this mental clarity before engaging with AI. So just by thinking about your intention, this forces you to clarify what you want from this interaction. And from this reflection, this will also guide you to choose the best AI chat for this specific situation. And from here, you are also better prepared to guide the conversation with AI, with those follow-up questions or with a specific direction that you want to explore. And this will also lead to a better evaluation of the outputs that you get from AI, as you have more clarity regarding what you want. And finally, this last benefit is also super key, because by defining an intention, this will also be important for how AI interprets and responds to your ideas. And this is also connected to a next item here. But before we get there, let me wrap up this initial thought on these intentions. So, two final thoughts here regarding your intention. First one is, there is no right or wrong intention. The most important thing is to reflect. Reflecting on why you're running these AI commands in the first place. So just this process of thinking is already going to give you a lot of these benefits that we've listed here above. And second is that I would suggest that you hold your intentions loosely, because setting an intention is valuable exactly because it makes you think and reflect on what you want, not because that is the only source of truth and the only thing that matters. So feel free to let go of your initial intention as you explore the voice note. It just serves as this guiding direction, not necessarily as exactly what you need to achieve in this exploration. So let's take a quick look at an example intention for analyzing a specific voice note. So this is the voice note that we've seen already, talking about the benefits of voice notes with AI commands. And my intention when I was capturing this was to get ideas out of my mind and into Tana related to the benefits for the voice notes and for the Tana Voice Note Agent. Now, when it's time to analyze this voice note, my intention would be to get a consolidated list of benefits that I could use to promote this template and to explain to people how this can actually be useful. So this is already that guiding star that can help me analyze this voice note in a better and more structured way. So this is just to get that juices flowing for thinking about an intention I'm not going to run these different commands. We've already played a little bit with this example. So let's keep going with item number 2 here, and that is to turn your intentions into context for artificial intelligence. A clear intention is not only crucial to you, it's even more important for AI. Because when you make your intentions clear and explicit in your prompts, you are providing context. And we will see what exactly I mean by context, but you can understand that by setting an intention, you're defining your purpose. But when you explain this purpose to AI, you are giving AI these crucial details about your situation that most probably are not explicit in your voice note. So let's look at what is context. What do I mean by this? And how your intention is connected to this. So by context, I mean any background information about this request that you're sending over to AI. So in other words, it's everything that surrounds the data that you're working with, which in this situation is a specific voice note. And this is super valuable because any additional information provides a better understanding about the prompt and about the data that you're sending over. This quote is a very good representation of what I mean by this. Everything in the universe only exists because it is in relationship to everything else. Nothing exists in isolation. This illustrates exactly where the problem is. Because when you are sending only an isolated voice note, you are just sending an isolated piece of information to AI. But as we've seen, nothing exists in isolation. So there's clearly a problem here because you're only providing an isolated situation to AI without everything else that is in relationship to that specific voice note. So the context is your attempt to provide as much information about the relationships of this voice note with everything else. And now you're probably asking yourself, sure, Shees, but what is everything else? And we have an answer for that. Let's take a look at some specific types of information that you can provide as context. So here is a list of what your context may include, such as information about who you are, because AI doesn't know who you are, how old you are, where you work at, what is it that you're interested in. So it has no information about you. So if you can give information about who you are, you're already going to get an answer that is more tailored to your specific needs. You can provide context on what the voice note is about. You might have explained it during the voice note, but trust me, this may not be as clear as you imagine, because humans are undetachable from context. Our context is like our cognitive biases. We are inherently wired with our biases, with our contexts. So everything that we speak is based on that context. But the problem, as we've seen, is that AI does not have access to that. We are just sending an isolated piece of information on what we just spoke about. You can keep on going with relevant history or background information about this situation, any constraints or limitations that you're working with. And here we're tying back with that intention. You can explain what is it that you want to achieve by analyzing this voice note. You can explain what are the different resources, people, software that you have access to. And related to who you are, you can explain what is your core functions, your responsibilities in life, in work, in business. So in a way, context makes your voice notes meaningful. It provides meaning. It provides AI with more understanding about your situation. And in turn, you're going to get answers that are much more tangible to your specific situation. And this is exactly what I touch upon in this comparison on why the context is important. Because without context, we are talking about this knowledge gap where AI doesn't know what is your specific situation. And this means it's going to generalize all of the output that it provides you. And this is going to carry different assumptions that AI is going to make based on general patterns rather than your unique situation, and even misinterpretations, where AI is going to fill in these gaps and assumptions and might misinterpret what your voice note is about. But when we add context, you are providing AI with this full understanding of everything surrounding your voice note. This means AI can understand what matters most in your specific situation. It can give you personalized answers by filtering the general knowledge that it has access to based on your situation. And this means answers are going to be much more relevant to what is important to you. Now I've separated a quick metaphor that I want to use to illustrate this point and help you understand this once and for all. So let's look at AI as having access to the entire knowledge in the entire cosmos. So we are talking about infinite perspectives, billions, trillions, quadrillions of different ways of looking at a specific situation. So this means AI has infinite perspectives when thinking about your specific voice note. It has billions of ways to interpret and look at this specific situation. But we can nail this down from billions to one, or at least a small number. And this happens when you provide context. Because when you provide context, AI can place itself in your shoes. So imagine there are 8 billion people in the world. When you explain exactly who you are and what you want, it's like you're collapsing from all of those possibilities into one. So AI is going to assume your situation and your perspective about this voice note. And from here, AI is going to provide much better insights, tips, and suggestions, because it's not going to randomly choose from these billions of perspectives. It's going to know exactly what you want, and outputs are going to be personalized to you. I hope this metaphor can nail it down and make things clearer, because this is a super important concept. Now I want to touch upon how to practically provide this context inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. So I've outlined 2 different possibilities here. So the first one is by adding the context straight into the transcript. And I've brought in that example that we were working with for the analysis of AI chats. And if I open the transcript here, you will see that I have added a context for this voice note. Here, you will see that I have briefly described what this voice note is about, which is the feature of AI chats inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. So the objective is to prepare lesson material to teach users how to use the template. I gave AI a quick explanation of what is the Tana Voice Note Agent. And I've also given it the goal of this specific video, which is about AI chats, to teach the best practices on how to use them. I've finally mentioned what is an AI chat inside the context of Tana, which is the specific system prompts to execute an analysis for us. So based on this context, AI will have a better understanding of all of the information that comes after inside the actual transcript. So this is how to add the context inside the transcript field. I also want to cover another possibility here, which is to record a contextual voice note. So this is a nice strategy where you can record a voice note that is deliberately aimed towards providing context. So this approach allows you to think through the context and articulate everything that you want to cover verbally using, of course, the idea of the voice notes. And here's how to use this contextual voice note inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. So there are 3 steps here. The first one is to record this dedicated contextual voice note. And here you can explain several of the different aspects we've seen before, such as your situation, background information, challenges, and so forth. And then you're going to combine the 2 voice notes, the contextual voice note and one or many other voice notes that you want to work with, using the voice note collection analysis. So inside the Tana Voice Note Agent, you can choose several different voice notes and analyze them as a collection, as a group. So suppose that you already have a voice note here, which is the one we were dealing with. If I were to record a new voice note to complement this specific voice note, I would add this voice note here. Contextual voice note. This does not have a sound file, but then I can combine these 2 voice notes, and then I can run the different AI chats in this collection where I have my original voice note and I have a contextual voice note that explains the situation in greater detail. So these are 2 great ways to add context to a specific voice note. Now the example is the one we've already seen, and this means we are ready to go for item number 3, and that is the critical evaluation of the outputs. Now, AI chats have a signal to noise ratio. In other words, not all are roses when dealing with AI chats. And that's because the outputs generated by AI will always have signal and noise. In other words, they will always have good parts and bad parts. And this ratio can be higher with more good parts or lower with more bad parts, but it's always there. And this has some implications, as we will see. And our objective with everything that we've been covering in this best practices section is to improve this ratio, right? So that we receive more good outputs and less bad outputs. But this is not the entire picture, right? Because yes, we can try to improve the ratio, but it's also super important to work with what we've got. Because this presence of a signal to noise ratio, it's not necessarily good or bad, it just is. And it's important to live with this. And we can play with this ratio, and there's an important thing we can do to navigate this ratio in a much better way. And that is to improve your perception of what is good and what is bad. So in other words, a big part of getting the most from AI is improving your taste buds, improving your understanding of what is good and what is bad. And here I want to touch on a couple of ideas to improve not only the signal to noise ratio, but your critical evaluation of what that ratio is, right? Because a big part of improving this ratio is understanding and being aware of what is the current ratio, of what is good, what is bad in a specific output. So when you look at an output, how fast can you separate what is good from what is bad? Can you identify which parts are truly valuable and which ones are not? And even, are you willing to discard the entire output if it is bad, right? Can you quickly identify, okay, this is not good at all. I just want to wipe it out and delete everything, right? This is an important perception to have when dealing with AI. And this is your critical evaluation. So the critical evaluation is this constant analysis of what is signal and what is noise. And it's the development of this human judgment, your human taste buds to analyze the outputs generated by AI. Because us humans are much better prepared to analyze the quality of what AI has generated. We have that sense to really understand what is good and what is bad. So this critical evaluation mindset focuses on identifying and expanding ideas that resonate with you, which are the high quality responses, and filtering and discarding that which does not contribute to your objective. In other words, it's also prioritizing quality over quantity by curating the responses that truly enhance your thinking and provide you with interesting perspectives and letting go of the rest. And I've separated a list of tips on how to improve this critical evaluation skill. The first one is that practice makes perfect. So the more you experiment with different AI chats and with different AI models, the more you're going to be exposed to different answers. And with this practice, you will learn what is good and what is bad. Another way to practice is to watch other people go through this process and see what sparks the interest of other people who are playing with these AI chats and that are generating outputs that you can see. And of course, in the end of this video, we are going through a couple of examples so that you can watch me go through this process. But it's this very important concept. In the end, you have to think for yourself. So this is super important because you are responsible for understanding what resonates with you. So what you find good as an output and what you find bad, and this is going to relate to your objectives and your intentions when going through this process. Now, this one is an underrated tip, and it is to trust your intuition, because you usually know in a second what is a good output and what is a bad output. Just by taking a quick look, if you trust your instincts, you're probably going to be right. And these final two are also super interesting, and it is to generate outputs with different models. And by different models, I mean different LLMs, such as ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and compare the answers. Because by comparing the answers by different models, you will notice what is it that you like in these different answers. What is it that you don't like in these different answers? And you're training your critical evaluation. And finally, this one is quite interesting, and it is to come back to an output generated by AI after a couple of days and look at that and see what looks valuable and what doesn't. Because this gives you some time to process whatever it is that you were thinking about and that you recorded a voice note about, and then look back with a fresh perspective on the outputs by AI. And this will help you notice even better what is good and what is bad. And that's also going to train your critical evaluation. Now let's move to number 4, which is to experiment with these AI chats in a state of imagination and abundance. Now first, let's touch on this very important concept, and that is interacting with AI chats is highly uncertain. So what I mean by this is that everything related to AI and these interactions with AI consciousness are still very uncertain and very unpredictable because one, it's very new, so it's a new area of study. We don't have a common consensus on what is valuable and what is not. And second, AI is like this black box where you don't know what is going on inside, so we can't predict what is going to happen. It's impossible to determine upfront which AI chats will generate good outputs and which ones will generate bad outputs because we don't know exactly what is happening. And this is also an inherent part of the process. Just as the signal to noise ratio is an inherent part, this uncertainty of what that ratio is going to be is also a part of this experimentation and of this exploration. And I understand this might drive some people crazy, right? Because how can we navigate such an uncertain environment as this AI field? But that's what we are facing. In order to help with this, I've put together a couple of tips on how to experiment with these AI chats. So these are mostly mindsets that we should apply when we are exploring and experimenting. So the first one is to embrace this uncertainty, right? Understand that we are not always in control, and that is okay. And oftentimes, this is going to require us to be open to possibilities. And a good thing to keep in mind is to not get discouraged by bad responses, because this doesn't mean that bad responses are always going to happen, right? And the opposite is also true. We shouldn't get overexcited with good answers, knowing that sometimes AI is going to strike gold, but not always. Another interesting way to experiment is to try different agents. Because as we saw, everything is so uncertain, we are never sure which agent is going to be best. By trying different agents, we are stimulating these different and unpredictable insights because these different agents can open up new pathways for thought. And we can't predict which ones are going to give us interesting pathways, so it's important to explore with an open mind and with different agents, different models. Another interesting way to experiment is to add context iteratively. So if you are receiving bad answers, maybe you can go back and add more context to make your objective even clearer, because this gives AI more information about your situation. This one is super interesting, and it is to embrace the abundance mindset. Because with AI, we can generate unlimited ideas and perspectives. So, historically, us humans, we have always valued information as if it were sacred. And it really was sacred, and it still is important. But right now, we have this overabundance of information and ideas, which means we shouldn't be that attached to a specific idea, and in this case, to a specific output from AI. So this means we can and we should delete outputs without regrets, without worrying too much about it, because you can always have another better answer in seconds, right? Especially if you improve something in this interaction, such as adding more context or using a better agent. So this mindset is super important when experimenting with AI and with these different AI chats. Now, this one is also super interesting, and it is to use your imagination. Albert Einstein said very beautifully that imagination is more important than knowledge. And in the age of AI, this is especially true. Thinking outside the box is a superpower. It's not going to be, it already is a superpower when using AI. Because using AI is super easy. AI does all of the work for you. It can generate infinite amounts of outputs based on any specific information that you provided. So where does the value come from? The hard part is to come up with great ideas on how to use AI. So the act of using AI is easy, but the imagination to understand how you can really use AI to make a difference, that is super valuable. And this comes from imagining these different scenarios, use cases, and possibilities that can provide you with value. So your ability to use AI in different ways can be a very valuable asset. And this comes from your imagination. So, imagination is more important than knowledge. So, how can you think on new ways to use AI that oftentimes go against everything that we were used to in the past? Because with AI, we are entering a new era. What worked in the past not necessarily is going to work in the future, right? So this is super interesting to keep in mind. And finally, have fun. Take it easy. Enjoy this process of working with AI. Be inspired by this important and almost magical moment in human history where we're opening up new avenues of exploration and new possibilities of human and technology interaction. Because this is what it is. This is a never seen moment in human history where we are witnessing a new way of working and of developing ourselves. So it's important to enjoy this process because this is super fascinating, right? So if you have fun, everything will fall into place in a much more enjoyable way. So these are my tips for you to experiment with AI chats in this state of imagination and abundance. So, to wrap up this section on best practices, let's talk about a couple of criteria to select the best commands for a specific voice note. So, as you know, we have 4 different categories of AI chats. And within these categories, some commands will apply to specific voice notes, but not all of them. So it's important to consider which commands make sense for a specific voice note. And here are a couple of criteria that you can use to help you choose which AI chats you would like to use for a given voice note. So the first one is your previous results. So which AI chats did you use in the past that gave you good results and that you're happy with? That's a very important source of knowledge because you can repeat those previous commands and use them again to get insights on new voice notes. Another one is the level or the depth of exploration. Specific agents go deeper while other ones go on a superficial level. So which one are you looking for? This is an important thing to consider as well. The content of the voice note should be an important information when choosing an AI chat because specific topics have more synergy with some AI chats and less with others. So this is also something to keep in mind. Of course, your intention and your objective are also super important, and you should select agents that align with what you're trying to achieve. Another thing is the type of thinking that the different AI chats propose. So you can choose agents that complement a current thinking style that you have or that you want, such that they have a similar style. Or you can also use agents that go for a different style and provide you with the perspective that you would never consider, for example. And finally, I do want to pick this and make this a part of these criteria, and that is random experimentation, right? We were talking about imagination, about being playful in this experimentation. So go ahead and choose an AI chat that doesn't necessarily make sense, that may be unrelated, or makes up a weird combination, because you never know what you might run into. These could be super interesting, right? And as an example here, I've brought here a voice note that I have recorded reflecting on unblocking life and overcoming insecurities. And I want to use this as an example to go through this rationale and quickly consider different agents that I would use to analyze this specific voice note. So this is clearly related to a personal reflection. So it's something that I would go deeper into to understand patterns in my life and how I have overcome insecurities, or how I want to overcome these insecurities. So whenever I'm going to choose an agent here, it's important to consider which of these agents are connected to a more personal reflection, right? So in this case, a cognitive bias check could be interesting. Identifying the main themes would also give me a good perspective of the different themes that this voice note covers. But for example, looking at stakeholders' perspectives wouldn't make much sense, as this is a personal reflection. It's not connected to several other stakeholders. The multi-perspective creator would also not fit into this analysis, because again, this is personal. This is not related to multiple other perspectives. Mental models could be a good idea, but I don't see a big synergy here. If I'm thinking about the type of thinking, I would probably go for a higher understanding one. So I could bring in the zodiac archetypes analysis, because by talking about insecurities, we oftentimes touch upon different archetypes that are weak inside our person, inside our being, that we would like to work on and improve, right? And inside the take action, for example, I could go for the growth and knowledge navigator, because based on overcoming insecurities, well, I might want to study and I might want to have a knowledge plan on how to navigate these insecurities and get more familiar with them, or learn more about the different insecurities and situations that I would like to work on, right? So the idea here is to think out loud and show you what are the different thoughts that come to mind when I would be choosing an AI agent to help me analyze this voice note. If I were to go for a random experimentation, I might choose to generate metaphors, for example, because it's not very connected, but it might give me an interesting idea, for example. So this is an interesting way to go at this. And related to the current objective, since this is a personal reflection, I could want to connect this to other recent notes, because I might want to look for how the patterns that I am talking about in this voice note connect to other situations on the recent voice notes that I have captured. So this is another possibility that could be interesting. So hope this makes sense. I hope this gives you some more tangibility to these different suggestions and criteria on how to choose a specific AI chat. Now let's go into our final best practice, and this one is a simple but important one, and that is to use AI chats to go deeper. So this is a very important concept, because we have the ability to go deeper and explore further a specific direction you might be interested in. And this is exactly what the AI chats enable us to do. So instead of just generating an output once and letting it go, we can use these AI chats to dive deeper after receiving the initial insights. So in order to do this, we can identify the most promising ideas and ask AI to expand on these ideas. This is one possibility. Another idea would be to ask follow-up questions such that AI can help us get perspective on specific questions about these reflections or about other things that we are thinking about. And we can even return to earlier points on the conversation after having given sequence to a chat, such that now AI has access to different perspectives and can use these perspectives to go back on something in the beginning of the analysis of the AI chat and give you more insight upon that. So this is also a possibility. And don't worry too much about the how. Just focus on actually having the desire to go deeper. Because just by wanting to explore further, you are naturally going to know how to do that. And as we know, AI is there as our thinking partner. So AI can help us go deeper and come up with further explorations. You don't need to think by yourself. You just need to be willing to explore your own ideas further and deeper. That's already enough, and that's already super valuable. So this wraps up the best practices. Let's keep moving. The next thing I want to cover is how to reuse AI generated content into your notes. So in order to do this, we have two different options inside Tana Voice Note Agent. The first one is super simple, and it's the classic copy and paste. So this is, of course, super easy. You can simply select the valuable segments from the conversation, copy, and then paste them into your notes or into other projects. And in this process, you can, of course, add your own commentary or refinements. You can remove any part that you do not want inside your output. And of course, you can also do this for the entire AI generated output so that you have everything that AI has generated for you inside of your notes. Then you can, of course, delete parts that you don't want to keep only that which is important. So a quick example here. You might recall that I found several of the new ideas inside this AI chat quite interesting regarding the benefits of voice notes. So let's take a quick look at how this would work using the copy and paste. So for the benefits that were not covered in the original voice note, AI has generated an additional list of benefits that cover new items that I might want to add to my notes. So I'm going to treat this example as my note-taking environment. So I'm going to add the voice note here, and I'm going to add my notes here on the bottom. And this is going to be where I will organize the parts that I want to save. So taking a quick look at this, couple of benefits that I would really like to bring over and save to my notes would be this one on enhanced emotional expression, reduced screen time, enhanced collaboration, language learning. This is interesting. The pronunciation is probably not going to be that easy to actually get as a benefit, but I'm going to copy this either way. The documentation of personal growth and accessibility for individuals with physical disabilities. This is most probably related to hands and writing. So this is also relevant. So I'm going to basically select all of these, and I'm going to paste the references to each of these outputs generated by AI. And here I would like to remove the ones that I would not like to include here, which is basically this one on memory retention. So as you see, this is super simple. I have already copied and pasted all of these into my notes. I can expand these, and if I want to make things clear, I can add refinements here. So say documentation of personal growth, I can make this bold, for example, regularly recording personal reflections, reviewing past notes, These are like important terms that I want to use here in the enhanced emotional expression authenticity. This is a word that I consider super important. They capture emotional nuances better than written text. Here, the reduction of screen time is super important. Encouraging healthier digital habits. This is exactly what I want. Quickly sharing project and updates verbally. Clarifying complex instructions using voice. It's interesting. Practicing speaking exercises. Actually trying to speak in a new language is interesting. So you get the idea here. I can add ideas. I can organize these into sections. I can make them like a hierarchy. So I can group these. There are several different little increments I could do, but you get the general idea. It's as simple as copying and pasting these over and then having access to these in a later time. So the second method that we have is to generate chat reports. So if you scroll down to the bottom of a AI chat, you will see this generate chat report command. And this is used to create a structured summary of the content inside this chat. The output will be a smart object with this chat output VNSO super tag. Now, I do want to point to a quick difference in behavior between chats with a single answer and chats with a continued conversation. So, for chats where you have only generated this first output, this first initial analysis, the output will summarize, of course, this initial AI response. And this will be similar to having a smart object for all of the 20 different AI chats. If you run the AI chat once and then click on the generate chat report. Whereas with a continued conversation, such as the one here in this case, the output will always prioritize recently explored topics. So the original answer, which would be this first analysis, may not be fully portrayed, and several of these details will probably be left out. A couple of tips for effective chat reports is to first consider creating multiple reports in different stages of the conversation if you would like to save important ideas that you have identified in this first answer from AI, and then maybe run this chat report again if you want to save newly generated ideas by AI. And the second one is similar to the process we did in the copy and paste. It's to review and annotate these reports to highlight the most valuable insights. And let's, again, use an example. So this is the same voice note, and we already have an AI chat open here. So I'm simply going to click this button to generate the chat report. You can see this is running the command in this voice note. So I'm going to click here to see this chat report being generated inside this voice note. Here we see the synthesis of knowledge. This has the chat output VNSO tag. It has added a couple of markdown formatting here, which I'm going to remove. And now I can take a look at what AI has generated as a report based on this AI chat interaction that we had. And we can see the key topics from the original voice note, the additional benefits suggested, which are these, including enhanced emotional expression, exactly the same concepts that are covered here. So relying on voice input minimizes the strain on the eyes, hands, and reduces risks related to screen exposure. So this promotes healthier digital engagement and work-life balance. It's slightly different from what we have here, So keep that in mind, but know that it will cover the general ideas that AI has given us. They mention interconnected benefits, overlaps, and synergies. These are probably covered here in the topic relationships. But it's interesting to note that this report is like big. It's well structured. There's several items here. So as I said, if you would like to remove different ideas here, you can delete, just as we did on the copy and paste section. I could, for example, remove this part. I might want to delete other parts of this output. I might add comments. I could also add labels or notes to any of these benefits, for example. So I might label this as important. I might connect this to another project that I might be working on. So this is an interesting way to use the output generated by AI, but actually give it your touch and associate any of these with other things that you might be working on. Another possibility could be to come over into the further explorations. And if I consider this to be a really interesting theme to cover, I can add a task tag to this and transform this into a task. So there are several different ways to leverage the information generated by AI, in this case, in this smart object. Now, let's walk back. And just to wrap things up, this closes these two different ways to retrieve and reuse information from an AI chat into our notes. And with this, we can close this AI chat and move on to the next section here, which is number 6, advanced strategies for combining AI chats to create deeper analysis with your voice notes. So first thing that I want to cover is a framework to combine and use different agents for a specific analysis. So the idea here is to go from an initial capture to actionable outcomes. And as you will see here, this will also go through an exploration phase. Let's look at these 3 stages one by one. So this is a framework that you can use to capture ideas using a voice note and then explore them in an organized and structured way. So first step is the capture and context phase. So here, this is super simple. We will record a voice note with a clear intention, and then if relevant, we can add context about your situations, your objectives, and any other information that might be relevant. And from here, once you have a voice note captured with the appropriate context, the second stage of this analysis is the understanding and exploration phase. So here we will mostly be using the agents from the understand category and the explore and connect category. So we can use agents from the understand category to get an initial overview of a voice note. Then, if necessary, we can go for a deeper exploration using agents from the explore and connect category. And then finally, this third section, this third phase would be the integration and action phase. So a good way to move into implementation is to use agents from the take action category so that we have a clear path towards a tangible action that we can take related to this situation that you've been reflecting about. And finally, this is the final integration piece within this framework. It's the connection. So you can link a specific voice note to different superfolders in Tana, and this way you can save the voice note and all of the relevant AI chats that you've generated inside that voice note to a specific project, area, topic, or contemplation. So this way you are building your network knowledge base and sending the information from a voice note to any of these different places inside of your Tana workspace. And of course, this structure is flexible. You can change and add new phases if you consider this to be a good idea. You can make this your own and adapt this sequence of steps according to what makes most sense to you. And I will show how this framework would work in practice on our next section here, which is number 7 with the practical examples. And the second advanced strategy that I want to cover is a simple combination of commands. So with the different types of AI agents and AI chats, you can create strategic combinations of chats that you can bundle together and run in sequence for specific situations that you might encounter often. So here I've separated 2 possible combinations to inspire your own bundles and your own mix and matching of AI chats. So in this first example, let's suppose that we are working with a product development deep dive, and this is something that you might be doing often, and you might record different voice notes related to product development. So for each of these voice notes, you could create a strategy where you run 3 different AI chats to get all of these different perspectives and then read them one by one, of course, filtering out and evaluating the outputs, understanding what is valuable, what is not, and then condensing the outputs from these 3 agents into your product development in this specific scenario. So in this case, we could use the insights crystallizer to get key ideas and core concepts for a product feature. For example, we could run the stakeholder perspective agent to analyze how different users, stakeholders would interpret these ideas and what they would feel about these ideas. An action strategic planner agent to create a concrete implementation plan, timelines, milestones, and other suggestions to improve your action taking. Now, the second example here would be a personal growth analysis. So let's say you're often recording voice notes related to your personal growth and different aspects of your personal reflection and journaling. You might create a strategy to analyze these voice notes, again, using multiple AI chats. In this example, we could create a combination between the cognitive bias analyzer to understand blind spots or, of course, cognitive biases that you might be susceptible to. You can use the generate metaphors to identify new perspectives for your own personal growth and integrate them deeply with a new and unexpected connection or metaphor. And finally, the growth and knowledge navigator to develop a personalized learning path based on the knowledge that could be useful to you, to your specific situation, and the reflections that you have spoken into a given voice note. Now, if you take a deeper look at both of these combinations, you will see it follows a very similar process to phases 2 and 3 inside the AI chat analysis framework, because these 1, 2, 3 different AI chats usually correspond to this initial understanding, then a deeper exploration, and finally an implementation strategy using these 3 different main categories of AI chats. So you could use this framework to create different strategies and different combinations of AI chats that you could bundle together in different situations that you are facing and that you might be wanting to go through using voice notes and AI chats as a support for your reflection and your thinking. So these are the 2 advanced strategies that I wanted to cover. And with this, we are ready for the final examples and a demonstration of how to use the different AI chats with a set of voice notes that I have separated for us to analyze. So these are real world applications. I have recorded all of these voice notes for my personal life or my professional endeavors, and I will be running different AI chats to show you how I would analyze these different voice notes in my life. And this means I will be giving a general intention for each of these voice notes, and then I will be running one or more different AI chats to get perspectives from AI about the situations covered in each of the voice notes that I have brought here as examples. Let's start with this voice note, which is an explanation about the two tag dynamic in Tana. So this is a very important concept when using Tana, and I have recorded this voice note talking about this dynamic. And I would like to use the basic chat to get a initial understanding of what is this interaction and to get a more structured material about this explanation. If I take a look here, you will see that there is a transcript in Portuguese. This is everything that I have spoken into this voice note, and this is good material. I could use this, but I want a more structured explanation in order to use AI to handle the complexity of organizing these ideas. Before we jump into this basic chat and start asking about this concept of the two tag dynamic, I want to make my intention clear to you. And my intention is to explain this dynamic to people who are getting familiar with Tana and who might want to create their own tag structures in Tana to connect items and connect different objects belonging to these super tags. So let's start with a basic question. What is the two tag dynamic in Tana, right? Let's start from the beginning, from the basics. And then I can expand on this chat and ask follow-up questions and even provide more information about this dynamic in order to tweak AI's responses and to better organize my ideas. The two tag dynamic refers to the meaningful relationship established between two distinct tags in Tana, leveraging the concept of triples, which are subject, predicate, and object. And here I know that the predicate is a relationship, and the subject and the object are usually both objects. In this case, they are instances of a super tag. And here exactly that AI explains exactly this. So the core idea is that tags are not isolated. Their true power comes from the relationship they form with each other. In this case, when there are two tags that connect with one another. And here we define the two types of tags, which are the folder tags or the different territories inside your workspace, inside Tana. So these are the main categories or hubs, which in this case would be like projects or areas, which are these different places in your second brain where you would like to save information to. And the object tags are these atomic objects. They represent collectibles, reusable components, and they can exist in multiple territories simultaneously. So yeah, we got an initial overview here, but I already have a question that I would like to ask AI. So I would like to ask for examples. Give me examples of the different types of tags. What are different folder tags and object tags? Let's see what AI gives us based on this analogy, which is covered inside the transcript for this voice note. And here we get exactly that. So folder tags, or these territories inside our second brain, are these containers or boundaries to organize content. And a couple of examples would be projects, clients, areas, content creation, and object tags. A couple of examples would be notes, tasks, quotes, resources, contacts. So you can see that these object tags, they are kind of resources. So I do like this example here because a note, a task, a quote, they are in a way different resources that you have and that you connect to these different folders, right? A possible folder tag of a client, the different objects that could be saved to that client are meeting notes from discussions with that client, tasks related to deliverables, contacts associated with that client. So you get the spirit here. And of course, I can keep going with this chat. And I would like to ask now a follow-up question based on implementation. So how can we actually get this practical implementation? Let's take a quick look at this output here. AI chat has covered enhanced information organization by clearly defining the folder tags. Good. Identifying the object tags. Okay, we already know this. But I can see it's not giving me what I want because I want to actually go into the configurations in Tana that I would like to use. And it's not giving me that answer. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to bring in a note that I have already explaining this tag, and I'm going to bring this in order for AI to have more material to work with and ideally be able to explain to me in practice an actual implementation that will make this work. So I'm going to paste a couple of notes that I already have here. So consider the following notes about the relationships between super tags. So I have this note that is relevant, and I will also bring over this note, and both of these are talking about the same principle of this two tag dynamic in Tana. Consider these two complements to the voice note and create an explanation on how to implement this two tag dynamic in Tana using fields as a relationship between tags. So let's see how AI is going to generate this explanation now with access to both the voice note and these notes that I brought in from my previous work on this concept. So here we can see that it's already bringing in these key principles for implementation using this option from super tag field configuration. This is defining the relationship between the two tags. And now it's giving us a step-by-step implementation. And I'm actually curious to see how this works out because I haven't provided this AI with specific instructions of how Tana works, nor how this configuration, this field configuration works for options with super tag. Within each object super tag, create a field configured with options with super tag. And now it's just missing a final detail that would be that maps to a folder super tag. So this would be the final component that is missing here. And in this case, it gave us an example, object super tag meeting note, field related project configured as options with super tag project. So awesome. This is exactly it. So looking good. And it touches on this idea of bottom up relationships where the field with the option with super tag is used to link to the relevant collector tag, which is the folder tag. So this is also good. And it's going to give us a couple of more practical examples, benefits of this implementation, generate a consolidated report based on everything that we've talked about, and see how it would generate this output or generate an initial article, for example, explaining this concept and why it is important. So this is an example of how to use the basic chat. As I said, you can do several different things using only this basic chat because you can keep asking questions using follow-ups, and then you can even bring information from outside of Tana or from inside of Tana in order to improve the interaction and improve the quality of the outputs that you're getting from AI. So I'm going to check this example number 1. Now let's move to example number 2, which is to use an example from the understand category of AI chats. And for this case, we will be using our familiar voice note documenting the benefits of the voice notes with AI commands. And this time, we will be using the Insights Crystallizer. So let's use the understand command for the Insight Crystallizer, and let's take a look at what this AI chat has to tell us about the benefits of voice notes with AI commands. And here, as AI is generating these outputs, I would like to touch on the concept that the Insight Crystallizer is different from the main themes analyzer in the sense that it's not going to look for the obvious main themes that were covered inside the voice note. Rather, it's going to focus on the top 3 insights or breakthroughs that I had during this voice note. So as you can see, the answers here are pretty different from the ones we saw on the Identify Main Themes agent. Insight number 1 is the voice as a direct channel to the second brain. So here we have realization, significant, and transformative potential. And in this case, voice notes, especially when combined with AI commands, act as a direct, efficient channel to our second brain, allowing immediate capture and structured processing. This is significant because this bridges the gap between rapid divergent thinking and structured knowledge management, enhancing productivity and creativity. And the potential here is by leveraging voice as a direct input method, individuals can seamlessly integrate spontaneous insights into their knowledge systems or their second brains, fundamentally altering how they capture, organize, and utilize information. So yeah, this is a good insight, and it helps us to get an idea of what is valuable inside this voice note, those deeper layers based on what we are speaking about. So voice notes enable unrestricted creativity. This is talking about 2 different concepts here. The first is to free individuals from the physical and visual constraints, which we use when typing by looking at what we write and by actually using our hands to type or to write something. This enables a different form of creativity and liberates us from these traditional constraints for productivity, expanding the possibilities for creative expression. And this allows us to capture ideas effortlessly in any context, fostering innovation, spontaneity, and adaptability. And this touches on another concept, which is that when you're talking, you have more flexibility, more freedom, much more spontaneity than when you're typing, because you can talk faster, you can change topics, you can add comments really fast on different information that you have already written down or spoken out loud in a way that's different from traditional typing. So we could keep on going with this specific AI chat, but I actually want to take a look at a different category applied into the same voice note. So let's see what we can get from this Explore and Connect category. I would like to suggest mental models for these benefits of the voice notes. And I'm not sure what's going to be generated as an output here, but I'm curious to see what potential mental models from different areas of study could be applied here when looking at these benefits and exploring the different ideas from voice notes and AI commands. So, okay. It's a good start. The first one is the cognitive load theory, which I really believe I did not mention this explicitly in the transcript. So this is actually super cool because as if you saw the entire video, you know I mentioned this cognitive load theory back in the introduction section. So Of course, we can here reduce the cognitive load by aligning the speed of thought with speech. And it didn't even touch on the idea of AI, but we already know that by using AI to analyze our ideas, we are offloading this cognitive load to AI in an interesting way. Extended mind thesis frames voice notes and AI as extensions of your cognitive process. And the application here is that you can treat voice notes and AI as integral parts of your cognitive system, intentionally designing workflows that seamlessly integrate these external tools into your daily thinking and creative processes. I'm actually even like emotional right now. Goosebumps going up because this is so true. And I studied the extended mind thesis for my master's thesis as well. And I did talk a lot about this thesis, which is by Clarks and Chalmers. And so super cool that AI has provided this as an example here, as a potential mental model, because this is super connected to the idea of a second brain and using Tana in a general way. And the way that it framed this application, I really enjoy this because it's exactly this. It's integrating these external tools, because the extended mind thesis explains that our cognition is a mixture between internal cognition and external tools. So in a way, everything in our environment, so everything that I have in my room around me, the Tana screen that I'm looking at right now, this is all part of my environment, which is my external tool. And these are part of our cognition. So these are still part of our mind. It's our extended mind. So super interesting to see AI bring this up, and I love it. Okay. Embodied cognition, engaging multiple sensory and motor modalities. Awesome. Which is voice, movement, visualization. Because when we speak, you can see I'm speaking right now. I'm using my hands. I'm using my body. I'm using my voice. So I'm embodying my knowledge. It's different. It's more intense than if I'm just typing with like a hunched up posture looking at a computer screen, because I'm using my voice, like I'm connecting to my knowledge in a deeper way. So I also like this embodied cognition. This is interesting. Synthesis of models. Combining these models, let's see what we have here from modularity. So modularity, in this case, breaking down complex divergent voice notes into modular manageable units through AI processing, facilitating easier retrieval, recombination, and reuse of these ideas. So in a way, it's using these AI commands to get one voice note and split up different ideas within a voice note into modular components. And yeah, I was looking at that because I was looking at this combination where we can combine these two to illustrate how voice notes and AI can extend and modularize cognitive processes, which is in a way connected to number 6, which we were talking about, using different AI agents, right? Because with different AI agents, we are creating different modules of knowledge related to different perspectives, and we can combine these cognitive processes as a part of this external cognitive system that we have to help us think and to help us live and progress in our day-to-day life. I mean, it's just so much fun. I could make like a 5-hour video talking about these AI chats. Yeah, we could go deeper into mental models, but we have 3 other examples to cover. So I'm going to call it a day with this chat. Let's keep going. Example number 3, I want to use this voice note, which is related to the launch of version 2.0 of the Tana Voice Note Agent. Now let's run the Action Strategic Planner to take a look at what are the actions and strategies that I need to take in order to launch this 2.0 version of the template. It starts with the current context and initial dynamics. So I'm launching version 2.0 of the Tana Voice Note Agent. New version significantly enhances the product by integrating advanced AI capabilities. And this aligns with the concept of AI first thinking and human superintelligence inspired by Michael Simmons. It gives us challenges and opportunities. Challenge is balancing ambitious vision with the practical execution. Opportunity is strong initial validation and positive user feedback. The clear differentiation through integration of AI and human intelligence enhancement. Potential to leverage Michael Simmons frameworks. It gives me the key stakeholders, me, existing users, potential new customers. It gives me a list of resources and constraints that I have mentioned inside the voice note. And here, this is super interesting because AI gives me three different pathways: direct application, a rapid launch and promotion, a second strategy, which is iterative development approach, which is like this phased feature rollout, and systematic integration, structured AI integration and positioning. Okay, so it also recommends an optimal approach, which is the combination of number one and two. And here you will see it gives me actionable next steps. So this is also interesting. It's going to give me step one to finalize the core features. This is definitely ready a couple of weeks ago. Update landing page and testimonials, produce and publish the YouTube demonstration video, and establish iterative feedback for continued development. And one thing that I would like to consider here is that based on this organized information, this is so different from the transcript that I have here, right? So if you take a look here, you will see that the transcript is all linear text based on something that I spoke into my phone. And comparing this with this output, it's like so different because here I have much more clarity on what are the challenges and opportunities, like resources that I have access to, constraints that I might have mentioned inside the voice note, and especially these actionable steps, because these do correspond to the items that I spoke in my voice note, but here they are clearly organized in order with specific owners for each of them. In this case, I'm the owner for all of them, but if I were mentioning different people, this would all be captured here. Sure enough, we have further exploration that I could dive into, and I could also ask follow-up questions to get more clarity on ideas to update my landing page and testimonials and different ways that I could do this. So keep in mind that this is just the initial organization of this information. From here, we can dive deeper into these and ask AI to follow up with new analysis and new possibilities. So let's call this a day for example number 3. Now let's keep moving with example number 4. So here I want to use a command from the Explore and Connect category, and I've separated this voice note talking about the strategic use of voice notes to provide context to AI. And this was also covered in the best practices for this video. And I want to run the generate metaphor AI chat because I gave you a metaphor for providing context to AI, but let's see what AI itself can come up with for different metaphors regarding this idea of recording a voice note in order to provide context to AI about your situation. Let's see what AI comes with. The contextual bridge, conversational seed, the emotional cartography, the strategic game opening. Okay, let's start with the contextual bridge. So voice notes function as a neural pathway connecting the human mind to AI systems, transmitting not just data but contextual awareness. So each voice note is this living database that contains both explicit and implicit metadata, and the user is essentially building a custom API interface between our own consciousness and the AI system by speaking these raw thoughts and emotions and sending them over as contextual data. So this metaphor reveals how voice notes transform simple audio recordings into sophisticated information conduits that prime the AI system for more relevant and personalized responses. This is interesting. I like it. I like the idea of the neural pathway connecting basically our mind through our voice straight to the AI that is going to be analyzing other voice notes based on this contextual voice note. Let's see if there is another interesting metaphor here. Strategic game opening. So like a game opening as in chess where you have an open move. So creating a voice note is like making a deliberate opening move in a collaborative game. So the user sets up the board state, which is the context, by defining the victory conditions, which are his objectives. So what are my objectives? This is the victory condition that I'm explaining as if this analysis of using AI chats is a game. And then the first move is this framing, is the context that I'm passing over to AI. So the voice note establishes the rule set and the game type for the interaction that follows. This is so interesting because this is exactly what the context is, right? The context is defining what are the rules of the game that AI is playing together with you. So if you don't give AI the rules, AI is going to make up their own rules. So like this is an amazing metaphor. I really like this. Okay, this is really good. I like this. I really like playing with AI. Okay, integrating metaphors. So it touches on this idea of interfaces between human consciousness and AI. And the common pattern reveals voice notes as multidimensional tools that transmit information, nurture growth, map experiences, and establish strategic frameworks. Okay, I got curious to see what is this conversational seed. Each voice note is a carefully cultivated seed containing genetic information like the contexts, emotions, objectives that will determine how the AI interaction grows. So it's treating the AI chat as a biological system, and then the information that we are passing along as context that are different seeds with genetic information that are going to influence this organism. I like this as well. This is good. This is giving me enough food for thought, and this would bring me new metaphors to use with this idea of context for AI. I might make a new video about this because metaphors are such an interesting way to understand and ingrain information. So this is good enough for example number 4. Now let's wrap things up with our final example for this video. And this time I want to use a category of AI agents that we did not talk that much about in this video, and that is the higher understanding. I want to analyze this voice note that I've recorded talking about the evolution from note-taking apps to knowledge media. So this is a voice note that I recorded explaining how note-taking apps are transforming from just a place where you take notes to a knowledge media where we will be able to transmit, as in this media format, our own knowledge to other people, and this opens up several interesting possibilities. I want to use this Dimensions of Consciousness AI agent to understand what interesting perspectives we can get for this voice note, explaining this evolution from note-taking apps to knowledge media based on different layers of consciousness. And we will see what this means when we start looking at the output. So while AI is generating the output here, I want to briefly touch on this note summary, detailing this transformation from just note-taking apps to knowledge media. This idea is that we have social media platforms where people share news and information, and I see this trend in humanity where we are leveling up from data to information to knowledge and wisdom. And our note taking apps are equivalent to the social media that deals with data and information, but on the top level of that pyramid, dealing with knowledge and wisdom. Here, I briefly mentioned Marshall McLuhan's theory that we shape our tools and thereafter our tools shape us. And I touch on this idea of knowledge distribution because just as information is distributed today, in the future, knowledge will be distributed. And then note-taking apps are going to play a central role in this process. There's also this idea of the collective intellect or the collective IQ, the idea from Doug Engelbart. So in a way, this new social network based on knowledge apps and note-taking apps is going to be super important to develop this collective IQ. Now, given this context, I want to take a look at this analysis of how different levels of consciousness are present within this voice note. So let's take a look. This voice note talks about the evolution from note-taking apps to knowledge media, facilitating deeper and structured sharing and interaction of knowledge. So it's like a shift from today's social media, which is based on information, towards the sharing of structured knowledge and enhancing collective wisdom. When looking at the different levels of consciousness, we are going to look at this idea through the individual consciousness, collective consciousness, spiritual consciousness, digital consciousness, and AI is going to give us an analysis of how this specific concept and the ideas in this voice note relate to each of these levels of consciousness. So let's see, like personal meaning. So what would this mean on an individual level? So individuals would seek to externalize their internal knowledge, making their expertise visible and valuable. This would lead to identity and growth, allowing these individuals to evolve. And a couple of questions that emerge are: how will individuals' self-perception change when their knowledge becomes explicitly structured and publicly accessible? Now, what would this mean in a collective level? So we could take on an analysis here on this collective level. And here, knowledge media would represent this collective aspiration towards deeper, more meaningful interactions beyond a superficial information exchange. So this would mark a cultural shift, valuing structured knowledge and wisdom over mere data and information. Again, on this collective level. I want to take a quick look at the digital consciousness. This caught my attention. Here, emergent network intelligence. Knowledge media platforms represent a new digital consciousness that bridges human condition with universal intelligence through structured digital interactions. So in this way, digital platforms become living ecosystems of interconnected knowledge, dynamically evolving through user interactions. This is an interesting way to look at how digital consciousness would be seen in this context of the knowledge media and the evolution of note-taking apps. Let's see if there are meta patterns. So across consciousness layers, a clear meta pattern emerges: humanity's evolution towards deeper, structured, and intentional knowledge sharing. I like this. It makes sense, and I do believe this is what is going on. And integrated understanding, viewing the evolution from note-taking apps to knowledge media through multiple levels of consciousness reveals this profound shifts towards exactly this intentional, structured, and meaningful collective intelligence. This integration highlights the transformative potential of knowledge media to reshape individual identity, collective culture, and exactly these different consciousnesses that AI has looked through in order to analyze this specific idea of note-taking apps and knowledge media. And let's just take a quick final look at this spiritual consciousness mapping. Knowledge media platforms could facilitate deeper connection to purpose, meaning, and collective wisdom. The structured knowledge sharing becomes a sacred act, contributing to humans' collective evolution and higher purpose. Interesting. And look at this. Platforms may encourage transcending individual ego by fostering a sense of interconnectedness and unity towards this shared wisdom instead of our individual information, data, and knowledge. And let's see, how might structured knowledge sharing platforms support spiritual growth and collective awakening? This is such an interesting question. And again, I could keep on expanding this example and looking and diving deeper into each of these levels of consciousness. But I wanted to show you an initial overview of how this agent works to illustrate that final stage of this process, this final example of using these higher understanding AI agents with this specific idea, which I personally find super interesting, which is related to note-taking apps and knowledge management. So let's wrap this up and close our final example here. And with this, we are done with this big demonstration and this explanation of how AI chats work inside the Tana Voice Note Agent. And I really hope you enjoyed this video, that you have learned some valuable insights and tips on how to better interact with AI chats in Tana and in any other tool that you might be using. So if you are already a part of the Tana Voice Note Agent, I'll see you in the next video, where we will go through a meta demonstration of how I used the AI chats to help me prepare the lesson material about the AI chats. And if you're not yet part of the Tana Voice Note Agent and you're interested in knowing more about this system, check the link in the description below. And I invite you to join this community and to become part of this movement towards using voice notes to work better and faster, and most importantly, to connect with ourselves, to know ourselves better, and to improve our self-reflection and our exploration of our inner realms, which is where I believe AI can really, really help us improve and enhance our human intelligence. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video.